Hi, my name is Lee, and welcome to the second video of the series where we're discussing a range of topics to help you build better, more resilient bots for your automation projects. In this video, I'm going to discuss how you can configure object-based automation steps to make them more resilient. Let's assume I'm building a bot to automate entry of invoices into this web-based billing platform. The first thing I need to do is create some steps to log in. Here we are in the Automation Anywhere control room looking at the bots that I've got created. Note that I've created a folder here called Invoicely. That's the application I'm automating. I'll be discussing in a later video ways of organizing and tagging your bots, but just note for the moment that I generally find that organizing my bots into groups based on the primary application that they're automating is usually a pretty good approach. Let's start off with our invoice entry bot. Now I could build the login steps one at a time using the recorder package and just dragging across this capture element, but a nice quick way to do multiple steps at a time is to kick off the recorder here. We select the application that we want to record, and notice as I move over the fields here it's highlighting them in red. That shows me that the recorder is detecting the objects within my HTML, my browser window here. So I'm going to paste into this one here, my login. Here I'm going to type in my password and I click on login, and the fourth step is to select one of the businesses here. Okay, so let's look at our first step and what's been captured here. So note that it has put the pointer to the particular window into a variable here, and we can then come down here and see that it's captured a screenshot of the particular item that I clicked on there. The action it's applying to that object is set text, and you can see here because I actually pasted details in here, it's put in the Control V actions there. I'll come back to that in a moment because that's actually an important aspect I want to touch on. Firstly, let's look at the properties of this particular object that have been detected. So note it's found that it was a text box. That actually can't be changed because that's something that it should always be, particularly as we're using the set text action there. It's identified it as an input object. That's not going to change, again because it is a text box. The DOM XPath has been captured here. Now this is one of the most important ones, I think. It's using a particular format here to find that object within the HTML form. Effectively, it's searching for the email name, or sorry, the email value as a value of ID attribute throughout the object. So that's a nice quick way to find that object within the HTML. It has found that the value of the ID attribute was email, so that's not going to change. It's effectively what's been searched here, so we'll leave that one on. The item doesn't have a frame, somewhat useless, so let's actually deselect that. So note that you can tweak these, and that's one of the main topics of this video here. It's a text box. Again, that's not going to change because we're typing text in here. It's picked up the path element in here. Now the path is built, I believe, by sort of finding that object within the hierarchy of objects that are on the page. So if there's a div tag and it's within that div tag, and then it's within a span element, and that span element's within a table, and so on, you'll have this hierarchy of positioning to get down to the individual object that we're finding. Now bear in mind that web-based applications in particular occasionally go through a bit of a refresh in terms of changing their look and feel. So this is the sort of thing that could change if the web-based application was given a little bit of a freshen up. So there's one of those items that could be subject to a little bit of instability. We're already going to be able to find that object based on the XPath and these other elements in here that are unique to it. So let's actually deselect the path here. That's a good approach to do generally when working with web-based applications, because we have a way of getting to it with the XPath. The path element could be subject to change, so we can deselect that one. Coming down here further, so not only is the ID of that control email, also the name of it is email. We could actually deselect this. It's not strictly necessary in this case because I don't think that's going to change. Something like the name and the ID of this element is likely to remain very stable, particularly with web-based applications, because there will be some back-end processing when that form is submitted, when you click on the save element, to reference each of the values that have been entered in the form there, and the reference to those values is the name or the ID of the field. So it's unlikely that will change even if the application does experience a freshen up or a reskin, because there's back-end processing to handle that. Okay, so that is the first point I wanted to make, that when using Recorder, go back here and check the object properties that have defaulted, and you can make some choices there that will make your automation more stable and resilient to change in the user interface that you're actually automating. The second point I wanted to make is this particular field here. Because I used Control V to paste in a value there, it has actually inserted a value into here to create a little bit of a delay between keystrokes, and that works well when you're doing Control down, pressing V, and then Control up. Certain keystrokes will trigger this to happen, and what happens there is it changes your automation from being a direct insert of a value into a control to an actual click on that control within the window, so that's subject to a particular resolution at a certain XY coordinate, and then a series of keystrokes being sent to that particular control. If you'll remember the hierarchy of preferred approaches in our last video, we are actually moving a little bit further down the hierarchy as a result of that. So ideally, if you don't need to use things like tabs and that sort of thing there to sort of trigger maybe values to update within the web interface there, what I would want to do is just put that value directly in like that, or even more preferable, use a value from the credential vault, which we'll cover in a later video. And I want this time between keystrokes to be set to 0. That means it's actually going to insert that value directly into the control once it's identified it based on these properties here, wherever that control might be on the page. So it's not resolution dependent then, and it's actually going to be much faster because there's no delay between the keystrokes. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. If you want to be notified when the next one comes out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Otherwise, thank you for watching.